order, and we will start with the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Scott.
Here.
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 Here. Here.
We have heard from Mr. Stack. He had a personal situation come up and is unable to attend tonight. Do I hear a motion to excuse?
Second.
Motion Nedra, second Duff. Further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Correspondence, I believe we have none tonight. Additions to business. We do have one addition that we're going to put down under item D. It'll be item D4, and it's appointment of Doug Nye to the Water Management Board. I believe we have any other additions? Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda with that addition?
So moved.
Support.
Motion Duff, second Sinkowitz. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Brings us to the first call of the public, an opportunity for citizens to address the council on agenda items. Seeing none, I will close the first call to the public. Brings us to item 7, approval of the consent agenda. I would actually like to remove item 10, approve warrants. We had a typographical error, and it's the October warrants we have, not April. So we'll just approve that as we go through it in the regular one. But do I hear a motion for the approval of the consent agenda with the removal of item number 10?
So moved.
Support.
Motion Duff, second second Sinkowitz. Further discussion? Roll call vote. Oop, roll call vote.
Scott.
Yes.
Nedrow.
Yes.
Sinkowitz.
Yes.
McGee.
Yes.
Dumont.
Yes.
Duff.
Yes.
Motion carries. That does bring us down to item 10, approve warrants. Do I hear a motion to approve the warrants payable for the month of October in the amount of $118,745.48?
So moved. Second.
Motion Dumont, second Duff. Further discussion? Roll call vote.
Scott.
Yes.
Nedrow.
Yes.
Sinkowitz.
Yes.
McGee.
Yes.
Dumont.
Yes.
Duff.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item 11, public hearings. We have a Community Development Block Grant Fund hearing scheduled tonight. Do I hear a motion to open the CDBG hearing?
So moved.
Motion Dumont, second Duff. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The CDBG hearing is open. Community Development Block Grant. Going once? Going twice? What?
What do we do?
It's, so Community Development Block Grant is an annual grant that we get from the state that we then reprogram to a couple of specific causes, which we'll talk about later on in the agenda. But part of that process is to always hold a public hearing in case people have suggestions or questions about what we'll do with it.
Motion to close.
Motion Nedrow, second Duff. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The public hearing on CDBG is now closed, and we will discuss it later in the agenda. Okay. Well, running right on down to 12. Okay, recommendations from Park and Rec. We have some recommendations for appointments and reappointments. So let's just take them in order. Recommendation to appoint Lori Longbreak to a term expiring December 31st, 2018.
So moved.
Motion Sinkowitz. Do we have a
Second.
Second Dumont. Dave, anything you want to say? Or
I don't, she's welcome though. Yeah, I don't know Miss Longbreak, but she came in front of us and wants to be part of it.
Okay. Questions? I was there. Seemed like she's going to be a good candidate. So,
Agreed.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. She could not be here tonight, but we'll get her sworn in as soon as possible. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3 motions to reappoint, I think I'd like to take all three in a single motion if I could.
I'd make that motion.
Second.
Motion Duff, second Dumont to reappoint Sarah Douglas to a term expiring December 31st, 2020, actually all three. Sarah Douglas, Julia Miller, and Kelly Psycho to terms expiring December 31st, 2020. Further discussion? I think all three have been good additions to the
Very
board
good.
so far. So.
Yes.
Make a motion?
I think we have the motion, so
Second.
we had discussion, and I think I'm just about to call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. They are reappointed. Congratulations. Item 5, Snacks with Santa. Recommendation to request, council request funds for Snacks with Santa for $1,000. Do I hear that motion?
Motion.
Motion Duff, second Dumont. Further discussion? I believe they're gonna hold it at the church this year, Shepherd of the Lakes, because construction is still going on up at the Richardson Center.
The library?
No, they're gonna do it at the church because it's within the
Oh,
village.
okay.
It'll be a good spot for it. It's actually a little bigger than the space at the library.
Okay.
Date, what is the date of that?
The ninth.
Nine.
Thank
Snacks with
One to,
Santa.
1 to 3?
Yes.
I thought it was. Yeah, wasn't sure.
I would have had to have pulled out my calendar. So I don't know if I got it on my calendar yet, but I will. Any further discussion of that motion? Roll call vote.
Scott,
Yes.
Pedro.
Yes.
Seymour.
Yes.
McGee.
Yes.
Duff.
Yes.
Dumont.
Yes.
Motion carries. Okay, item 6, recommendation to request council approve the formation of a committee to plan a Veterans Memorial. That should actually read for the park. And this was out of discussion at the Park and Rec meeting. I happened to
The
be
joint
there.
meeting that we had.
But they'd like to put together a group of people to actually work on it. I think they were looking for a little council direction on how to do that. Dave, anything you'd like to?
No,
add?
that's exactly right. Just, they want to form a group, and they were looking at us, and I'm looking to council as well, for ideas as to how to form a group.
So I think what I'd recommend is that we put together an ad hoc committee to do it. It consists of at least 2 members of council, 2 members of Park and Rec, and other citizens as needed or desired. And then that gives us some flexibility around who wants to step up and be part of it. And we create that committee, have them get together, come up with a recommendation, and go from there.
Is that
Ed?
fun?
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah,
Go ahead.
at that meeting, I volunteered to help with it, and later that week, myself and Phil Peters and Debbie Melvin got together and just were throwing some ideas around. And basically, the biggest thing that we had talked about is fundraisers. We thought of, the euchre parties, the Texas Hold'em, things at the park. They mentioned even doing like maybe some small marathon races through utilizing our track. But one thing that I thought of, which we haven't done in a while, is get the boat back on the lake. It's been, what, 3 years now, and it always seems to be a good draw. And I don't know if we're planning to bring that back anyway.
So my understanding, and I haven't been, Julie is directly involved, and we don't have Mr. Stack here tonight. I believe the chief has been involved with a little bit of that, is that it may be difficult to get the boat, that particular boat back on the lake right now. They're set up a little bit differently. There was just some organizational problems that out of the last couple, there's a lot of work involved in it. Having said that, I'm totally in favor of it. All of this discussion, I think, is exactly why we should have a committee and let the committee figure out what they want to do, make some recommendations. So, I think what I'd like to entertain is a motion to create an ad hoc committee to plan a veterans memorial for the park to consist of at least 2 members of council, 2 members of Park and Rec, and other residents as needed. And then we'll put that committee together, figure out fundraising, figure out what we want to do. And I believe we can even probably get a couple of council volunteers tonight to be starters there. I'd like to let Park and Rec, give us theirs. I'm sure, I think I can probably guess who they're gonna appoint, but we'll give Park and Rec the opportunity to name their volunteers and bring forth other people. I mean, I think 4 is a starting point, but I think we're likely to have a lot of interest in people who want to join in. So
Would that be a subcommittee of Parks and Rec or council? or
It's
just
an ad hoc committee. I think it's really under council because we're creating it.
Right.
But I think, it's a joint committee, really.
So
Well,
they
I would definitely like to be involved with it, so,
So
So
let me
when-
ask, do I hear a motion to create that then, Ed?
yes.
Second.
Motion Sinkowitz, second Dumont. Okay, further discussion? As a friendly to that, I could take our council volunteers if we have them. It seems to me that Ed certainly wants to be in, and I think that's good, and maybe our Park and Rec
I will.
liaison would be a good.
Yeah, I'd be,
Good.
I'd be
So,
honored to, yes.
Friendly amendment with Sinkowitz and Dumont to be our initial appointees.
Yes.
Would part of their requirement be to bring back a budget also, so that we know
Would
what
it
we're
be-
dealing
Yeah.
with? Okay.
Yeah.
Would it be
cost and.
ideas?
Perhaps
cost,
smart to
right.
put them
Okay.
also associated with the Parks Capital Committee in some form or another, or directly to council? I don't know.
I,
I don't know if that's really necessary.
yeah, I
in
think
the sense.
let's keep it simple. Let's have them back to council. I think we've got enough crossover that we'll get.
Yeah.
We'll want a budget from them. We'll want a plan from them. There are lots of good ways to do it. A lot of communities, when they want to do something like this, they hold a competition. They hold a design competition and let people come forth with designs. And I think you often get new and creative ideas that way. So I think that's a good idea. But we'll let the committee figure it out.
Yeah, Deborah had a lot of information on that already. And while we're on the Parks and Rec thing, I'd like to bring something up just briefly. I had met with.
Wait.
Okay.
Is it something
Related.
to do with something to do with the Veterans Memorial, or is this another Park and Rec item?
Another Park and Rec item.
Okay, so let's finish off Veterans Memorial
Okay, I'm
first, and
sorry, I
let's go to
thought we were
that.
done.
Anything else on committee? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have created the committee. Go forth, find our Park and Rec volunteers. Let's maybe send out an announcement to the village and see if we have other volunteers in the village who want to be appointed, and we can appoint them as needed. Okay, Ed, we are still under Park and Rec, so go ahead.
Yes, I had met with our administrator, and I got a copy of I guess it was a Facebook, and it was from Scott's wife, and apparently in it, and I have a copy on my phone, and I know I showed it to the administrator, is that he's no longer part of Parks and Recreation.
No, that's not so. So Ed, there was a considerable dust-up among a couple of the members following the corn roast. They've since, I think, talked it out, come to an amicable agreement. And I think all is well there now. There were, it
Well,
was.
one of the comments was, I will never volunteer for anything with Parks and Recreation again.
Was that from Scott Fredericks himself, or?
Who was?
That was from the wife. Her and Scott were talking. But I guess what I'm trying to get at is that if he's in, he's in. If he's out, he's out. But I think someplace along the line, and I know there's been some discussion among the members there that some of the problems arise that are created by him. But I think what we need to do is find out, either through council or through the next Parks and Rec meeting, is he still a viable?
So I think that I can give you a little insight, because I know you were at the part of that Park and Rec where we discussed veterans
Yeah.
memorial. I stuck around for the whole thing, including when they were getting ready to do their reappointments and talk about who should be chair, and I came away from that meeting feeling, and this is also following, reconciliation, following the disagreement, that Scott is still interested in being there. He wants to go forward. I think their Park and Rec right now is having a discussion amongst themselves about who they'd like to be the next chair. And Scott, in that meeting I attended, was very clear that he'd be willing to give somebody else a shot at that. So I think that's gonna have to be something Park and Rec decides amongst themselves. And I think they're capable of coming to a good decision there. But as, from that meeting, from discussions I've had, individually with Scott, he still wants to be part of the board. He still wants to be on planning. He still wants to be the liaison. He still wants to be involved, and he's willing to step down from chair if somebody else wants to step up and take
Okay.
that gavel. So
I did not have that information. I know that had been talked about, but I was just,
yeah, no. So I understand the concern there. I think
Yeah.
the situation's moved on from there.
you put
It's in a
stuff on
good direction.
Facebook that,
I think it's probably a lesson to everybody about what you put on Facebook. That's a lesson America needs to learn again and again and again.
And then that's something,
Dave, you're a liaison. Have
Yes.
I fairly
You
represented
have.
the situation?
And what we did, and I think the board was wise in doing this, is we held off appointing our chair, and we still have one more meeting remaining in 2017. So we haven't come up with a chair yet, and I think that there's been some tensions. I don't know all of the in-betweens, but I know that there are quite a few people on that board who have a lot of heart, and they work so hard at putting these events together. And the distractions are frustrating for me to see because they seem to take more energy than they have to give, and it's a shame. As far as Scott's concerned, we'll let Scott do what Scott wants to do, but he is willing to step down. I would like to say that I would like to see somebody else pick up that position, and I think there's some people on the board that would be they would choose to give him more time, and I hope that some of our members on the board, one in particular, would consider stepping up and chairing that board.
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys can find a good candidate for that position. It's just, and, I'll be the first to say, chairing one of those boards does take some extra time, so.
Everything that board does takes a lot of time, and I appreciate what they do. I don't know if everyone sees how much goes into these events, but they talk about every nickel, every dime, every little gift or giveaway to such an extent. They really should be applauded for their efforts.
Yeah, I mean, I think, on the council, I know a lot of folks have in one way or another, been involved or run some of those events. I know several of us have done the fishing tournament, for example, and other events. And it's a huge amount of work that goes into making them successful, so we appreciate it. And I think that's just gonna have to be a situation that Park and Rec sorts out.
Yes.
Um,
And if Scott does want to move on, and I'm really asking more than telling, but if Scott does want to continue to be chair, I think we feel that he could also step down next year if we felt somebody else wanted to step in. And again, I'm asking.
Yeah, if somebody else wants to step up and be chair, and at that point, Scott wants to step down, the board can change its chair. Chairs have changed mid-year before. It's not.
yeah, I think they have a couple of candidates that are going to come forward for that
Yeah, and I think
chairperson.
that's- But I think we're just gonna have to let them
Yeah, do
decide
their
what
own
they want to
thing.
do there.
responsibility.
Yeah, agreed.
Mhm.
And thank you.
All right. That does bring us to our audit presentation. Raina Emmons, the audit.
Good evening. I'm going to try to get to this now. My pleasure this evening, I'm Brina Emmons, partner with PSLZ. My pleasure this evening to address council and present to you the annual audit of the Village of Wolverine Lake for your fiscal year ended June 30th, 2017. I'll start, as usual, with a few highlights for council. I have of course, it's a very good report. I have, it's a unmodified audit opinion, which is the highest level audit opinion possible. So there's no qualifications, disclaimers, anything bad. It's all good. Layman's terms, it's a clean audit opinion. So let's just start with that. Property taxes, we had approximately a 3.8% increase in property tax revenues, and the village did not have an increase in your millage, so that's all taxable value increase that we saw this year in fiscal year 17. So comparing that into we've talked in prior years about the downturn and how, we took a significant hit to the taxable values here in the village, and it would be a slow climb out. So looking back at the last 8 years, the last 3 years, we've had increases in, similar increases to this year, the last couple of years. So it's 3 years in a row that we've seen a nice increase in the property tax values here in the village. State shared revenues, we had a slight increase in state shared revenues this year. The state did give the municipalities, the local units, a personal property tax reimbursement of sorts this year. Because they're phasing out personal property tax, as you know, they're trying to make good with the local units and try and shore up, especially things like essential services and, police that you're paying for. They want to make sure that you're not getting a complete 100% hit on that. So, and this will be the personal property tax will be phased out, and it looks like it's about 2019, 2020 when it'll be completely phased out. So they're trying to ease the phase out a bit. The village did add $123,000 to the general fund balance this year. You had expected to use up about $8,500. You were expecting to dip into your fund balance, but there were capital projects at year end that didn't make it into fiscal year 17, and you've rebudgeted for them now in fiscal year 18. So everything didn't happen all in 17 as planned, so you're carrying over
We
into 18.
didn't spend it all, but that money is getting spent in the current.
Yes, and it's all planned for already and rebudgeted. Then that's approximately about $150,000 rebudgeted into 2018. License and permit fees decreased, but it's still significant here in the village. Just to give you kind of a comparison, in fiscal year 16, you saw a lot of the building permit revenue from the Beechcrest apartments, and this year in fiscal year 17, we didn't have all the building permits, but we did have plumbing and mechanical and the electrical, those type of permits hit. So still significant here in the village, but not nearly as much as we took in fiscal year 16. And of course, our inspection fees follow suit. The expenditures did follow suit in 17, so those increased.
It ends up being essentially a pass-through.
Exactly. Yes, that's accurate. But we did, you've had some very nice development here in the village. And, a lot of that is the apartments, but many are single-family homes, and people are investing in the village, and that's a great sign. The slight increase in police department expenditures and significant capital improvements in the village this year. We added a police vehicle, a DPW vehicle, and we had a Menia Park improvements this year. Moving on to debt. We paid off the 2007 special assessment bonds this year, which we're always happy when we make debt go away. But in total, you paid down approximately $295,000 in principal on debt this year, and you added no new debt this year as well. And net pension liability, something that was a hot topic last year when we started phasing in the new pension requirements. You actually saw a decrease this year in your net pension liability. Now, how is that possible when everybody is going up? Your total pension liability actually increased. Let's see, your total pension liability went up about $105,000. However, your plan assets increased more than what your liability went up. And so your plan assets, you saw an increase of $195,000. And some of that is that you've been putting in additional lump sum contributions to MERS. So it's starting to show up and pay off now already. And also, MERS saw a better return on investment this year than in the prior year. So all that helps, and so again, our net pension liability came down actually by about $100,000 this year, which is about the extra lump sum that you've been putting in the last couple of years and you plan on continuing.
So the money that we're putting in is helping with that situation.
Absolutely, and it's nice that it's showing up already, because normally you start putting extra money aside, which is great, but it always takes a while to catch up in the numbers. But, that compounded with the fact that MERS actually did well on their return on investment this year. Fiscal year 17, well, it's actually calendar year 16 was the actuarial
16, they're a year
valuation. So
behind.
it's already showing up in the
2
numbers,
years
which,
behind, yeah.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
a good program, a good idea that we got into doing that.
yes, so I thought that was important to let you know that is a positive sign. And just to finish up, the, new Governmental Accounting Standards Board pronouncements, which I always seem to have a new one every year to bring to you. None this year in this audit, but coming up next year, we'll be implementing the other post-employment benefits. So a couple years ago, we implemented the pension standard, and now they're following suit. It's basically the mirror of what we did with pension, we're going to be doing with the post-retiree healthcare benefits. So you will have a new actuarial valuation that will reflect that in next year, and that will show up in next year's audit. But they're, they want to look at it from a completely different angle with different assumptions, and we'll see how that all pans out.
So again, the general idea there is to make sure that we get a clear picture of our long-term liability, right?
Yes, exactly. They want you to see the full picture. And of course, and, council's seen it from year to year. I mean, some years they're close and other years not, but it's just the general, there's at least they estimate it and there's a number out there so that people aren't completely ignoring it, which your council certainly has not been ignoring. So with that, I'm happy to address any questions. And of course, I did hand out the charts. We don't need to discuss them this evening. I just thought it's good information for council to see the numbers in a different format. But I'm happy, of course, to address any questions or comments that you may have.
I do want to remind everybody that we are still in state shared revenue, more than 50,000 under where we were in 2002, in actual dollars, much less inflation adjusted dollars. So people sometimes wonder,
Well, when I'm doing the charts, I kind of want to take, it starts with 2002 and it goes to 2016 or 17, there, 17.
Yep.
I really wanted to take 2002 off, but I thought it was really important because it seems like that's the key point really where, to show that, look at what we used to get and look at where we've come now.
I find that useful, and I might find a similar one with real estate, with sort of taxable valuations to be useful over time too, because that's a question that comes up for us a lot. People are like, well, sure, real estate went down in 2008, 2009, but the market's back now, so why isn't taxable valuation back? And seeing the impact that had, because it's unable, it's capped and it's unable to rise back from that low point, I think is a useful, it's useful for people, and it's a useful explaining point for us.
In the village, it's very clear if the village were to do a chart like that, because you've really held your millage rate pretty consistent. You have not had significant fluctuation. You've really tried to keep the millage rate stable here in the village, and it's really just the new development that's helping bump up our taxable value increases. I mean, it's probably more like 1.8%, but we're showing 3.8, and that's really because of the additional development coming online and people building nice houses and that type of thing. It all impacts in a positive way to the bottom line.
All right, folks, questions? Mr. Condek, anything to add?
Not at all.
I think I would now entertain a motion to accept the fiscal year 2017 audit report.
So moved.
Motion Duff, second Dumont. Further discussion? I just want to say that I'm, once again, really pleased to have a unqualified, clean audit, so thank you, Mr. Condit, for continuing to be a really good shepherd for us. It is a much different situation than when you arrived in this village, so I'm grateful for that.
That's great, sir. Thank you.
Any further discussion?
I just have to tell you, you make this so easy. You know, it's not like going to the dentist, you know, you
Well, I
just.
sincerely appreciate
Yes,
that.
you know, the charts and the paperwork and everything, and you always bring good news, so we like to see you.
And I would just like to continue bringing good news to you, but I'm not.
If you have bad news, we want to hear that too.
I
So that's the idea.
certainly, but please know, it's not a one-man team. You're, Administrator Byrd, Treasurer
Oh, yeah,
Condit,
we have two
your
good
staff.
people over here.
Really, I mean, we all hunker down and get the audit done, and everyone is so cooperative, and, whatever I need, they just, it really makes my job very efficient. Mr. Connick does a lot of planning ahead of time. I mean, he's sending me stuff in the summertime, and we get it done by fall, and, it's really, I'm very appreciative of that fact. So thank you for everyone's efforts.
Kudos to all.
All right. Any further discussion on the motion? Can we get a roll call on that?
Scott?
Yes?
Nedrow?
Yes.
Sinkwitz?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes.
Duff?
Yes.
Dumont?
Yes.
All right, thank you, council.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rena. All right. Recommendations from planning. So first up, recommendation planning does recommend reappointing Scott to a 3-year term and continuing him as the Park and Rec Board liaison. Do I hear a motion? Motion Nedrow, second Duff. Any further discussion? I think we discussed the salient points already, so.
And we also discussed his liaison position on planning, so, at the meeting, so.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Let me get a roll call vote on that.
Right, Scott?
Yes?
Nedrow?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes?
Sinkwitz?
No.
Duff?
No.
And Dumont?
Yes.
Motion carries. All right, next, recommendation to reappoint Ginger Nick Lloyd to a 3-year term expiring December 31st, 2020. Actually, yeah, let's do them separately because there's something on 3 too. So do I hear that motion?
So moved.
Second?
Motion Nedrow, second Scott. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
So on this one, I talked to Administrator Byrd about this. So so that actually should not be the ZBA liaison.
Yep, so for number 3, Cynthia Rocker should be 3-year term expiring December 31st, 2020, but she's not actually the ZBA liaison, so they'll send us the motion for ZBA liaison.
Oh, it's Kathy.
Next month.
Yep.
Yep. It's
I'll
Kathy
have that
Rocker.
in
Yeah.
December
Yep.
for council. Sorry about that.
So do I hear a motion to reappoint Cynthia Rocker to a 3-year term expiring December 31st, 2020?
So moved.
Support.
Motion Duff, second Sinkowitz. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Water Management Board. I think we can probably take these two together. So do I hear a motion to reappoint Catherine Duff and Dixie Gannon to a term expiring December 31st, 2020?
So moved.
Motion Scott, second Duff.
He's looking at me, I'm looking at him.
I saw your hand, I took it as a
Gamesmanship
second. Any further discussion? Seeing none.
Glad to have them continuing.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, so, oh, thank you. We had a couple of items from, that went before Water Management Board, and we didn't get a motion back, but I think
Right.
we may need to take some action here. So the first was, Progressive AE did send in their motion to be retained for lake consultant services in 2018 at the same cost as the 2017 contract.
Correct.
we would not like to, I think, get into a situation where we get too far up to the deadline of that contract without knowing what we've got in place, because if we have to do something different, there's a process, we would have to go through a bidding process and an RFP process. My preference, and I'll let Mr. Scott weigh in here in a second, would be to see us continue with them. I think they did a good job this year. I think we've got, we're doing a long-term study with them on aeration. We've been pretty involved in that. And I think I'd like to see us just do the one-year extension and move on. And now let me see if Mr. Scott has.
I think that's a fair summation of where the board is. I think the board had a more in-depth discussion about what's facing us on aeration in the upcoming fifth year, which is 2018. There has been 2 stakeholder meetings, and the DEQ has come down with quite a lengthy number of items that need to be now added to aeration in terms of the possibility of measurement. And we did receive a number, an estimate, after the meeting, so I can talk a little bit about that. But let's say the estimate for that continued monitoring aeration is surprisingly high. And in talking with other resources that I've developed over time, there's some question of where we are relative to even needing to do that kind of reporting for the DEQ because of our restrictions on shallow waters. So with that said, I think it makes sense to move forward for another year with Paul. And I think that's a general consensus of the board, and then look to see in the upcoming year, well, next fiscal year, or next year, I'm sorry, 2018-19, if you would, what we would do to send what is going to be another contract out and make decisions on aeration. So let's move ahead, and I think it's a general thing to, let's bring Paul back in for another year, and only for another year.
So I believe I hear that as a motion.
That's a
to
motion,
retain-
yes. Retain Paul and
Yeah,
Progressive
so
A&E
retain
for another year.
Progressive AE for another year as presented. Do I hear a second?
So moved.
Second, Nedrow. Further discussion? I think my discussion would be really on point of aeration, and I think we're gathering, or we've come close to gathering enough information now that if the state is going to add, sort of significant additional reporting costs, we need to decide if we're seeing enough progress to continue, because it is not inexpensive to continue. If we're seeing progress, if we're seeing something useful, then I'm in favor of continuing. But if we're 4 years in and not seeing genuine improvement, I don't know that it makes sense to go the 5th year if there are additional, particularly expensive state reporting requirements.
Yeah, well, a little commentary on that. First of all, let us not forget that we're only one of 2 lakes that I know of that have a restricted depth level of 20 feet. When we have holes, deep holes, which is what aeration is designed to do, of at least 3 deep holes in the Penny Lake Arm. So the efficiency of the aeration is still in question because of the insulation restrictions.
Yeah,
And if we,
and I agree completely. I mean, I think we're a little bit, we have our hands tied by the state, but if the
Yeah.
state has made it clear they intend to continue to tie our hands.
well, and the board is moving to, we have Jeffrey Bryan-Schnagel. Is he committed to come in December or January?
It's probably going to be January.
That's good. That'll be even bit better. Jeffrey, it was the DNR Fisheries who really threw the restriction in, and the DEQ who, I guess I've got to say from most of the conversations I've had and the board has heard, could care less, let's say, to the level of where you put aeration, as long as we're not injuring the lake, as compared to Fisheries, who was saying that if we were to go to deep hole aeration, we would be creating a possibility of warming the deep holes. And the 3 years, and I must be more specific on the council to understand that Paul is not doing intensive aeration measurements. He's
Right,
doing
yeah.
subjectively smaller aeration measurements in terms of what is happening in the deep holes, We haven't seen any real change in the configuration of phosphorus retention in the deep holes and other. We are getting reports from residents, actually. I think some residents actually made comment in the survey that they are seeing visual changes going on in the boot, if you would, down near Commerce. So there's a lot of things that need to go on to get more clarification in terms of what the efficiency is. But out of the, again, the number is always varying. I understand there's 19 aeration systems that will be in operation. There's only 2 that have this restriction that we have on it. And in talking to 2 other installers, 2 other limnologists, they're very frustrated that the DEQ is not releasing the data that they've required on 16 of those installations, and they have the data, but they're not willing to crunch it and release it. And so there's 2 state senators involved in going to make potential presentations that change all of this reporting. That's a long-winded way to say it's too early to make a positive or negative recommendations. I've said many times, if it's not going to work, we should cut it short. But I think there's a fair reason to continue to do what we're going to do, which is to go after the DNR and then after the DEQ to get a better determination of, hey, if you're going to restrict us, you pay for your expensive analytics that you want done.
Yeah,
Because the failure isn't measurable against other success rates they're seeing.
And I want to give it,
No.
a fair chance to succeed if we're proceeding and there's a fair chance.
Yeah.
But I think, we could use a little clarity. All of which is a little bit to the side, except it really involves here's our lake management. I think we're in general agreement that we'd like to see Progressive AE continue as our lake manager for another year,
Yep,
regardless.
and that's the
Figure it
core
out.
of the conversation here, I think.
Yeah, I agree with giving him another year, because a couple years back, I think he didn't really do the kind of job or get the information that we wanted.
Well, they were slow for permitting, as you might
Yeah,
remember.
yeah, but, you know.
And they didn't have the chemicals. That was actually our applicator's problem, not Paul's problem. And by the way, the board questioned him in depth on that.
Yes.
The applicator has in fact stated that they have now a stockpile of what was necessary to fight the growth that we saw of celery.
Now,
But hey,
would you say that the water board was happy the way the lake was this year?
I think generally we were happy as compared to the prior year.
Because I noticed that there was a real lack of weeds.
Well, that's because of what I used at one more meeting, that we nuked it in the sense that.
Yeah, because the fishing, there were no bluegills nesting along the shoreline in my area or around the island in normal places where I fish. And I'm hoping that they just didn't come in because they were so vulnerable to predators. And I know it's a fine line, because it's nice if the shorelines can be used to swim, get your boat in and out, and not get all tangled up in weeds and all that kind of stuff. But even some of the fishing tournaments we had over here, I would just walk down the end of the road and go talk to the guys, and they said that probably this, and it could be other things too, weather, but with the lack of vegetation in some of the better areas, that they were getting not the quality, but not the quantity of fish that they normally got. And I think that with what happened last year, that in all fairness to him, because I've been out in the boat with him, I see him go by, that he definitely puts his time in and makes an honest effort. And I think one more year, you don't want to start changing doctors in the middle of surgery. So one more year I would agree with, and then we take another look.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that I think you said are true, Ed. It is more of a science than an art. I should say. It's a lot of science that turns into an art,
Mhm.
and it's tough to
There-
control that.
There's a
art
tough
side.
balance, and Mother
Yeah.
Nature always surprises you.
Yeah.
And you know, the sad thing is that the Cara is kind of, people don't like to walk on it, but it keeps the muck down. So you can drive through with the boat and it doesn't turn cloudy. The Cara's gone because we had to get rid of the Starry Star wart. So if you throw a rock out into the water, next thing you know, there's this big black cloud.
Yeah,
The silt.
it's-
So it, you know.
Well, the Cara will come back. It is coming back,
The
actually, at the end
Cara,
of this
the
year.
Cara should come back. The Starry Stonewort is kind of what killed off the Cara, and you know.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
stuff's
So hopefully
a
we've knocked the
bugger.
Starry Stonewort down.
Yeah,
But yeah, it's,
we see that down
and
at the
once
dam
you get as many
particularly.
invasive species
And
as we
believe-
have, it's
because
tough.
of the lack of weeds, if you've noticed, up until the last couple weeks, I'm an avid waterfowler. There, not only did we take the geese off the lake, but they never came back because there was nothing for them to feed on. The younger geese could not get down deep enough to get it, so they moved to some other lake, which was a good thing.
I think they moved down near the dam then, because I see them around there. I did put some colored charts and et cetera in front of council. I don't know if that was loaded up or not, but I don't know. I know we have a busy agenda, but if you want, our limnologist does use, and I've verified this with 3 other limnologists, what they call hydroacoustical biovolume has become the basis for what the DEQ wants to see when we're measuring. And what you see here and what you guys have in front of you in council are some of the early comparisons. For those that are in the audience, hydroacoustical biovolume basically means that our limnologist goes around and with his depth sounder, he takes a thumbnail input digital, and then that's broadcast up to satellite. And just in quick order, what you see is 2014 and 15, 16 is missing, but it's, the first is pre-aeration. I think we put this into June, is that correct? Spring, okay, the spring, and then next into
Summer.
August. And when you look at weed volume through the eyes of this particular scientific measurement, what you're doing is you're really looking from the satellite and asking, well, what is closest to the surface, what is it? And you can see that when our first year of variation, we were really getting it off the ground in 14, in 15 come August, we were seeing more red and green. That green is deeper weed, the red is actually the penetrating weed where something's coming up through the surface, okay? And that was a bad year. Just if you want to flip to the next one, Ken, just as a comparison, this one's a little bit more difficult to read, but again, the top on that is in August of 16 as compared to 17, and you can see there was a significant difference or an improvement where you see much less red, even less volume of the green, so we have more control going on. And that's when the sonar came in, was in 16. So we expect to see, and back to what Ed said and what we all know is, we're not out here to, and can't really eliminate native weeds. I mean, that is what the fish, the weed that caused the most difficulty is actually the most fish-friendly weed. And that's the one that we took out. It's also the most duck and swan friendly, and that's the lily that they yank out of the bottom and starts floating
That's
around and creating all
wild
the
celery.
Wild celery, I said lily, I'm sorry, but wild celery, so. Yeah, let's move ahead, and your water board's working very hard to figure out what next steps are on this aeration item.
All right, so I think we've got a motion, we've had a good discussion. Any further discussion? Oh, sure.
I just wanted to point out, for anyone who may not be aware, we are surveying residents every year on their satisfaction with the condition of the lake, and not everybody participates, so it's not the end-all, be-all of lake comments, but we had 83% of respondents say they were satisfied this year, compared to 46% last year, so a wildly dramatic
Wildly
swing.
different.
We had 75% less late complaints this year than we had last year. But one of the things I wanted to mention was that on the front page of our website, there's a link to those survey results. And so if anybody hasn't seen that, please check it out, because it's not just the answers to the question. We allow people to comment on each question. And it really says, it shows a lot of how difficult it is with the public perception of the lake, because one person will comment, aeration's great, and the next person will say, aeration's a giant waste of time, why are you doing it? And one person will say, best year ever. Next person will say, this was the worst year ever. And so it's a really hard thing to manage, but by and large, residents seem to be very satisfied this year with the condition of the lake, and we'll just keep doing the best we can with it.
Fingers crossed.
All right, any further? Roll call vote?
Scott?
Yes.
Nedrow?
Yes.
Yes.
McGee?
Yes.
Duff?
Yes.
Dumont?
Yes.
All right, thank you, council. We have one more water management board item, which I believe they had intended to discuss and forward. So when they last had applications, they had two openings and 3 applicants.
That's correct.
The applicant who did not get nominated was a fellow by the name of Doug Nye. My understanding was that at the time they intended to appoint him at the next opening. They do now have an opening.
Mhm.
So, so I believe they intend to go forward with Doug Nye. Is that correct, John?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. I think if you look at the water board meetings, you'll see there was some discussion about a concern, which we know that our administrator had reached out 4 or 5 times to, who is now a former member.
Yeah.
SIG, and
Yeah.
it was well explained why he couldn't continue on the board, and with, as you'll see in the notes, with that reach out concluding there was a reason that he wasn't going to resign, the board would like to see council appoint Mr. Nye.
So-
He was very
So
qualified.
the board is good with us just going forward with the appointment?
I don't think there's any doubt in my mind. I don't know about yours, Nathan, but I think it's fairly clear.
No, I thought that was the intent.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so do I hear that then as a?
That's a motion.
to
Yep, a
appoint Doug
motion to
Nye?
appoint Doug Nye.
Water Management Board, second Ed Sinkowitz. What's the expiration date on that, do we know?
Well, SIG, I think, is up next
I
year.
believe it was 2018, December 31st.
Okay.
I think it's December, boy, I hope I'm right on that, but I think so.
Term expiring 2018. So, term expiring December 31st, 2018. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Gets us now to item 46A2. You might remember this was the bit of follow-along in the intent that came on with our changes in the peddler clip code. Just making it clear that this doesn't apply to special events in the village. We introduced it last month, and if I have a motion to approve, we can adopt it.
So move.
Second?
Motion Duff, second Scott,
Mhm.
to adopt ordinance 46A2 as presented. Further discussion? Roll call vote?
Scott?
Yes?
Nedrow?
Yes.
Sinkowitz?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes.
Dumont?
Yes.
Duff?
Yes.
All right, now brings us to item F, Community Development Block Grant Subrecipient Agreement and Resolution. You will see in your packet, we have a recommendation to do as we have done before, to program 3,000 of that to Haven with the remaining going to long-term housing.
Housing rehabilitation.
Housing rehabilitation, thank you.
Mr. President, this is virtually a copy of our application from last year. One thing to notice, kind of contingent with that, is the fact that we are just now getting the authorization to spend what we approved last year. That seems to be getting later and later. So that doesn't even kick in until December. Who knows what it's going to be like next year. But because of so many restrictions, because of so many changes in the rules to make it more difficult for us to act directly with our citizenry, we continue to, and I think this is the 4th year running, continue to kind of program money back to the county so they can use it for the exact purpose that we'd be using it for anyway. And you can see there in the memo that I give you some data as to, I mean, it's not like there weren't any Wolverine Lake residents helped. I mean, they did make some loan approvals, and that seems to be continuing. So we're augmenting their sources of revenue, and I think that's probably the best thing we can do under the circumstances.
So with that, do I hear a motion to send 3,000 to Public Service Haven and 5,218 to Housing Rehabilitation, with the motion to read as presented in your packets?
So moved.
Second.
Motion Duff, second Nedrow. Any further discussion? I do want to say that I think Haven is a very worthy program, and I'm glad we've been able to continue supporting them.
In conjunction with that, Mr. President, we did hear from them, as you know, and there were 2 full-blown cases that they dealt with. But one of the things that the lady was telling me was that a lot of times there's phone counseling. And of course, there's no way to trace whether or if that somebody is a Wolverine Lake resident or not. I thought she was going to be here tonight. She made it sound like she was, but it's worthwhile passing that along, because I think that's one of the things she would have said.
Okay, makes sense. Good to know. Any further discussion? Roll call vote.
Scott.
Yes.
Nedrow.
Yes.
Sinkowitz.
Yes.
McGee.
Yes.
Zima.
Yes.
Bauer.
Yes.
Thank you, council. All right, update on sanitary sewer special assessment district number 4. Who wants that?
I'll start. We had an informational meeting Monday the 30th. Mr. Powell was there, and Julia from his office gave a really good presentation. The room was overflowing with people. We had, I think, over 50 people in the room. So there's a lot of interest in moving forward with this. We are now up to 44 people who have signed the petition, which is well more than what we need. And we had more people come up today to sign. So, Mike, I don't see any reason why we can't move forward with the first public hearing if you think we can be ready to go by December. Yeah, so, yeah, there's a lot of interest in it, and people are excited to get started.
So what would be the cutoff date for people being able to for people getting added to the petition?
Really, the cutoff date is before the motion from council at the first public hearing to establish the special assessment district. And I believe, Leanne, if I'm right, council has to start with a motion to intend to establish an SAD first, correct?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
So I don't know if we can do that in the public hearing in the same meeting or not. So if we can, then that first meeting could be taken care of in December, and then the second one in January, and we can get on with connecting people to the sanitary sewer first thing in the spring.
So then, realistically, if we want to be able to do it at our December 13th meeting, we're going to need a couple days to make sure that the list is clear. I just want to make sure that we've had people come forward pretty late in the process to do it, but if there's somebody out there who still wants to, the more that join in, the more it cuts the cost for everybody on it. Would like the Friday before be kind of the final day? We could maybe set that as a deadline to join, or would it need more time?
I think that would be wise, but go ahead, Nathan.
Yeah, I think that'd be fine, but technically, if somebody showed up to public hearing and said, take my name off, we would still need
We
to
would
take
still
their name
take it
off.
Well, there are 2 different issues. Adding is one thing, because you can't increase the SAD after it's been established. But quite frankly, you can remove them just before the second public hearing.
Okay.
So you can remove much later than you can add.
Okay.
Just out of curiosity, if 2 people said, take us off, and there are 2 people who want to get on, they can go on, right? Because it's a number, it's not a name.
No, it's an actual
Oh,
legal
yes.
listing of
Okay.
the property.
All right. So they'd have that Friday to make up their mind.
In
For
theory,
yes.
if they showed up at the meeting, at the public hearing, council could add them at that meeting. It just is a
Yeah.
paperwork issue.
Right, okay.
It's actually established.
Right.
So I think if we establish the deadline on the Friday before, then that could be the deadline, because
Yeah.
otherwise, Otherwise, if we have people, I don't know that we'll get anybody at the last minute, but,
Yeah, they gotta make it, or get off the pot.
yeah.
The first person signed this petition in 2014, so this has been out there for a while. And, just anybody watching, it's available to sign any day of the week that we're open. Feel free to come in, and we also have information to share. If people aren't quite sure what it's all about, we can help them with that as well.
We don't need any kind of motion for this, do we?
I think we do. We're actually, so I think what we need is a motion to establish the
Cutoff date?
public hearing for, the public hearing for the SAD at our December 13th, 2017 council meeting with a cutoff date for joining the SAD at the close of business 5 PM, December 8th.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion Sinkowitz, second Duff. Further discussion around that? Okay, and I think that gives anybody who
Ample time.
who wants to ample time, and it moves us along as quickly as we can, because I was at that organizational meeting, and there were some people there who are understandably anxious to get the process underway and get hooked up.
The paper's asking who made the motion.
I did.
Motion Sinkowitz, second Duff. All right, any further discussion? We get a roll call on that.
Scott?
Yes?
Mitchell?
Yes.
Sinkowitz?
Yes.
Yes.
Dumont?
Yes.
Duff?
Yes.
Thank you, council. Second call to the public, opportunity for citizens to address the council regarding any and all village business. Going once, going twice. Seeing none, I will close the second call to the public. Item I1, recommendation from Police Chief Ellsworth, attend Michigan Association Chief of Police Conference in Grand Rapids, not to exceed $1,100 from budgeted funds. Do I hear a motion?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Motion Duff, second Sinkowitz. Discussion. Chief Ellsworth.
No, it's the same conference. Obviously, they have different speakers every year, and it's a really good conference. I think this is the best one out of the two. The summer one I was a little disappointed in. I shared that disappointment with Mr. Byrd, but I really look forward to this one. This is it's a great location, and everybody is pretty much stays right there. So I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be another good learning opportunity, and we exchanged a lot of good information.
I think you've brought back a lot of good information from these
I have.
conferences. So. Any further discussion? Roll call vote.
Scott?
Yes.
Mitchell?
Yes.
Sinkowitz?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes.
Dumont?
Yes.
Duff?
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Item J, recommendations from Engineer Powell. Let's start with 1, pay request, parking lot striping, Vita Trail pathway link, and shoulder restoration, $6,850 to ASI.
If council has any questions, otherwise it's very straightforward. The ASI did a very good job, and they were the lowest bid to stripe the parking lot, and certainly it's been a pleasure to park in it all these days. Then also the Vita Trail, if you remember, we put a little connector in between the parking lot and the Vita Trail itself to allow people to access the trail on a trail instead of across the grass. And then the restoration work throughout the village. There was a great deal of work done to bring in, take the millings and raise up some of the shoulders, lower some of the shoulders, bring seed and mulch in. I think they did a very, very good job this year, and we only had even a question, and it was resolved immediately. So it had very little problems this year in restoration. So I'm recommending that we pay that full amount to ASI.
Mike, I was in the impression that the restoration was in the original contract.
It is, but keep in mind that it's all unit price. And so this is part of that original project and an original bid. We just don't pay it all up front. We pay it as they do the work, because they only get paid for the unit amount of work that they do.
Now, are we still holding back funds?
Yes, the next item, you'll
Okay.
see that we're holding back
All
funds.
right.
So I'd like to make a motion that we pay AIS the $68.50 that we owe them.
Motion Duff.
I'll second
Second Scott to pay $6,850 to ASI as presented. Further discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote?
Scott,
Yes.
Nedrow,
Yes.
Sinkowitz.
Yes.
McGee,
Yes.
Dumont,
Yes.
Duff.
Yes.
All right, item 2, paving program, $52,661 to ASI.
This is a little bit more complicated, and it picks up where Mr. Sinkowitz was asking. During each of the pay requests all summer, my recommendation was to withhold 10% on each of the pay requests. And there were a total of 4 pay requests throughout the year. Since we're going into the winter time, and I do not feel comfortable releasing all the funds yet, there are still some minor checklist items that they haven't done, and I want to make sure that the pavement really survives very well through the winter. I'm recommending that we withhold some funds, but it's not proper for us to withhold all 10% of the retained funds. So I'm recommending that we retain approximately $5,800 and pay the balance of the retained funds in the amount of $58,399.61.
All right, do I hear a motion to pay $58,399.61 to ASI as presented?
Can I check something real quick? Mike, is it, I thought it was 52,661 was the recommended pay.
You are, thank you. I was reading my bottom line here instead of, so it's
You're right.
58,000 minus the 5,800.
Right.
And thank you very much.
So I'd like to make a motion that we pay AS the $52,661.
$52,661 from Duff, second Dumont.
Yes, thank you.
Mike, if, for as much paving that had been done, $5,800 doesn't do much.
No, it doesn't, except that if the entire paving project goes awry, then no matter how much we save, we wouldn't have enough. The MDOT says we really can't hold any more than 5%.
Okay.
This takes us down under that 5% number. But there's only really 2 areas of concern that I have. A problem on, not Wanda, Wanda, and another problem on Oakview. And so this is more than sufficient to take care of any of the problems that I see,
Okay.
and certainly any of them that I anticipate.
Yeah, if you feel comfortable with it.
Yes.
I mean, I would have thought something
Right.
more like around 10,000, but if you're comfortable with that, I'll go on your recommendation.
I am, Counsel.
Thank you.
All right, further discussion? Roll call vote?
Scott,
Yes.
Nedrow.
Yes.
Sinkowitz.
Yes.
McGee.
Yes.
Dumont.
Yes.
Duff.
Yes.
Thank you, Counsel.
Item K, I need a motion to go into closed session after item 17 to discuss negotiating of a collective bargaining agreement and consideration of attorney-client privilege communication. Do I hear that motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion Nedrow, second Duff. Further discussion? Roll call vote?
Scott,
Yes.
Nedrow.
Yes.
Sinkowitz.
Yes.
McGee.
Yes.
Dumont.
Yes.
Duff.
Yes.
Thank you. Item L, set topics for the November 22nd work session. I noticed that November 22nd is Thanksgiving Eve. Do I hear a motion to
Bring it.
Yes.
forego the November 22nd work session? Motion Sinkowitz, second second Duff. Further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Pending business, we have none tonight. Update from Chief Ellsworth.
Where do I begin?
With a
Let's-
shave.
Yes. First, let me give you an update on the 2018 Chevy Tahoe. I went with the four-wheel drive. And actually, after working with Mr. Evans from Berger Chevrolet, we got the price down to $39,052. So, and that includes a couple of a few extra items, such as the cages that we usually buy aftermarket, some lighting, as well as some wiring harness that'll make it much simpler and cheaper to use to get it roadworthy. So I'm very happy about that. I got the purchase order today and have emailed that to him, so that's going to be done. I will be working with Lakes Area Safe Harbor regarding the opiate use and how this department has responded. I'm actually taking part in a video. They're going to be here on Friday to video me in all my glory with my gray whiskers. So, but it's an important topic. We just lost another young lady. Actually, she lives right across the street on Commerce side. 27 years old, has a young child. Lost her yesterday. So it is terrible. It is probably the worst we've seen it in my 30-some years in law enforcement. I've never seen anything like it. So with that, I'll give you a quick update on my Pigs for Wigs. The No Shave November is obviously underway. We have 5 officers that are participating. I threw out a special, for those of you that don't know, I threw out a special challenge to Marine officer and radio personality, Steve Grunwald, which he had no way to reject because I'm his boss, and his bosses at a radio station said, "You're going to do this." That if I raise more funds than him, he's going to shave his head and vice versa. Well, unfortunately, it kind of backfired because he reached out to a lot of national known country stars, and he is currently at $4,675, and I'm at $2,055. But that being said, it all goes to a great cause, and we're very happy to be involved. Total from the local departments raised so far, as of 7:04 this evening, was $7,930.05. And I'm proud to say that I might be in second place, but my department total, compared to a lot of these other departments, is in third place. We have Brighton, Ferndale, Hazel Park, Huron, Clinton, Metro Parks, Lathrop Village, Milford, Orchard Lake, South Lyon, Sterling Heights, and Wolverine Lake. Wolverine Lake's coming in out of the top of all the departments. So I'm very pleased, very proud of my guys, and they've done a lot of good things, and we're really looking forward to this. And just so you know, December 1st in the CBS studios in Southfield on American Road at 9 a.m., one of us will be getting a haircut. So, and no, the beard is going to go December 1st also. That's part of the plan, is everybody shaves clean on December 1st. So
He was sitting there thinking, who can I go up against? Who's a really popular radio personality
Yeah,
with a
I
great reach
probab-
across?
I probably didn't think that went through too bad, but actually it was my intentions of doing this anyways. Some of you may know, or some of you may not know, my sister was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer about 6 weeks ago. So she's in her, maybe it's been longer than that now. She's in her 5th week of chemo treatment, and she's lost her hair. And so I plan on going to the Christmas party with my head being naked anyway. So it's personal to me, but
We'll bring some turtle wax.
we're doing a lot of good, and we're getting a lot of good publicity for not just Wolverine Lake, but the police in general. So that's my pitch, and I know some of you others are going to help pitch in, and we appreciate that. So other than that, I think that's it. It's been a busy month, obviously, with the stats, as you know. As you can see, we're pretty busy out there, and it's good to have a full crew again. So thank you.
Update from the treasurer.
Just very briefly, Mr. President, in the aftermath of the audit, we do put a PDF copy on our webpage, and also there's one for an actual hard copy for review at our front counter. And if there are questions and anybody wants to discuss it, they can always see me anytime.
Thank you. Update from the treasurer, update from the administrator.
Just a couple of things. We have really good things that happen this time of year. We're doing a coat drive in a partnership with the Oakland County Sheriff. So Anybody who has used or new or gently used coats, there's a big box upstairs. We'll be collecting those till the end of the month. We also participate in Santa Shop. There's a collection box upstairs for that as well. So good things to get involved in. And I just wanted to mention, we had a steady flow of people yesterday coming here to vote, but we did not have anything to vote on. And I came into quite a few emails from people who were angry that we weren't open for voting last night after hours. And I just want to encourage people to please come back next year, because we will have things to vote on next year, but that there was nothing on our local ballot this year. So just want to make sure it wasn't a mistake on our part. We didn't, fail in our duties. There was just nothing to vote on in Wolverine Lake, but there will be next year.
Sort of heartened to hear the interest in voting and a little disturbed that they came down to vote without knowing what to vote on.
It was an interesting day.
Scary.
All right, council comments, we'll start down at this end.
Well, opening day is next Wednesday, so everybody that's going hunting, hopefully be safe, hopefully you get something. And since I'm the only one with a beard on council, figured I would throw out a 50 and hope the rest of the council would donate to the chief.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. There.
You're hoping not to see the chief's head, is that what you're saying?
I wouldn't go that far, but
Tom?
Leaf rake sales are down. I counted 11 leaves on the ground on the way in. Isn't it about final pickup now?
It starts tomorrow.
You're kidding.
We're consolidating it down to 4 zones, so that we're going to be covering more ground each day, but we're probably not going to have a whole lot of success. Your neighborhood isn't tomorrow. It's posted.
No, but I mean,
there's
It just dropped last night. There was a lot that dropped.
a lot fell today.
Yeah, yesterday and today. Yep.
But the bottom line is that we're going to get what we can, and then there will be a second pass through later on. But we need to get this done by December, and that 90-degree stretch in September really threw the leaves for a loop, I think, because it's going to be pretty light the first go around. But we normally start this last week, and there was nothing to pick up. This week there's a little more out there, but we're going to do the best we can with it.
Scott?
Well, I'm gonna match that guy across the table for you.
I like that.
Okay.
Thank you.
I've been.
The kids thank you.
Well, it's part of, other than that, I think in general, I don't have anything else to comment on, so.
Everybody have a safe and happy Thanksgiving.
I'd like to see everybody enjoy their Thanksgiving with their family and be safe, have a safe hunting season. I had leaves on here. I think we're a week early for the amount that's out there. I don't see people putting them out, but hither or thither. The leaves have to be in a pile, not in a row, not spread out, a pile, because the machine picks up large quantities. So if you have a strip 2 feet high and 50 feet long, probably most of those leaves are going to be left there. Make a nice big pile, and that's how they pick them up. The other thing I wanted to ask about, and I didn't want to bring it up during Parks and Rec, the original drawing that I saw of the Armenia Park, the swing set is put so close to the parking lot, I almost think it's dangerous. If somebody came in with a pickup truck and backed up, or if you had a car and you pulled right up to the butt, I think that swing set is not more than 5 feet away from the front of a car. And I don't have a copy of the old drawing, but I thought the swing set was supposed to be farther back. And I don't know how it got moved up there that close, but if anybody's driving around and you go by Armenia, just pull into the parking lot and look how close you are to the swings. I hope it's not, but I think it could be a dangerous situation.
Yeah, I'll take a look the next time I come by there. I think the original drawing had them going, the swings going sideways in the park, so
Yeah.
not towards, and that may
Yeah.
be something to look at.
And, too, with all the things that happen now, to have the kids on a swing 5 feet from a car, That's not good.
I believe it would be pretty straightforward to move that particular piece of equipment, to change its orientation.
Yeah, and that was the one that the Eagle Scout did.
Yep.
He did a nice job. Kudos to him for all his work.
If it's in there, but I think we can take a look at that.
Thank you.
And for me, I will just say happy Thanksgiving to everybody. So with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn into closed session.
So moved.
Motion Dumont, second Nedrow. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Do we need to take anything up to the Bat Cave?